ஒரு தெய்வத்தை நான் அறியாததால் வேறு ஒரு தெய்வத்தை நான் அறியாததால் வேறு ஒரு தெய்வமும் என்னை அறியாது. शुक्लाम्बरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये. गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुर्साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः. कलये सुन्दराकारं सदैकप्रियदर्शनम् अज्ञाननाशकं देवं सद्गुरुं मुरलीधरं मुरलीमण्डितकरकमलं मुनिजनमोहनं व्यत्यस्तपादं वनमालाधारिणम् प्रेम भक्तमण्डल नित्यकीर्तितम् प्रेमिकवरदम् आश्रयेऽहम्. कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकीनन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः. नाम संकीर्तनं यस्य सर्वपापप्रणाशनं प्रणामो दुःखशमनः तं नमामि हरिं परम्. गोपिका जीवनस्मरणं गोविन्द गोविन्द. सद्गुरुनाथ महाराज की. It is by the boundless grace of our Guru Maharaj and Sri Premika Vardhan and Sri Madhuri Saki that we are gathered here today on this very auspicious occasion. Today is Gopashtami, a very auspicious day where we celebrate not only Sri Krishna Bhagavan but everything that was involved in his life in those young days when he was a young child in Vrindavan and Gokulam. Whenever our Shastras refer to Sri Bhagavan's avatars, they generally refer to them as Dasavataram. It's a very common term, Dasavataram, which means 10 avatars. Whilst we often say that the number of avatars that Bhagavan has taken is 10 in number, it's in fact we cannot count how many avatars he's taken. Take for example young Prahalada, a very young child, Mahabhakta, always chanting Hari Kirtan, Nama Sankirtan. When he's being interrogated by his father Hiranyakashipu in that royal court, and Hiranyakashipu asks him, if you are such a big bhakta of Bhagavan and you think that he is everywhere, then is he actually in this pillar right here? If I smash this pillar, will he come out? And what does Prahlada say? Yes, he is there, of course. Satyam vidhatum nija vritya bhashitam. And Hiranyakashipu smashed that pillar and Narasimha Bhagavan came out. So if Bhagavan came in that form of Narasimha to ensure that his bhakta's word, to ensure that Prahlada's word remained true, remained satyam, and we accept that form of Narasimha as one of those avatars, as part of the Dasavataram, then by that same logic we should also accept that the form that Bhagavan took when he appeared before Dhruva Maharaj, also a young child, also a Mahabhakta, the form that he took then is also another avataram by the same logic. And so if we look through the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam, every page it recounts another story of another bhakta. And with each bhakta, Bhagavan appears before them, grants his darshan. And so with each page, there's a new avatara of Bhagavan. So Dasavataram is only really a snapshot. The number of avatars that Bhagavan has taken is infinite. But if we were to look within that Dasavataram, those 10 forms, we would notice that in most of them, he would come for only a very short period of time. He would come for a particular purpose, and once he finishes his job, he heads back home to Vaikuntham. Even in Narasimha Avataram, he comes, he vanquishes Hiranyakashipu. Prahalada Maharaj does a very beautiful stuti, and then Bhagavan is on his way. However, only in 2 avatarams within that Dasavataram does Bhagavan actually take birth on this earth. He grows up amongst us and he lives amongst us. Only 2, Sri Rama Avataram and Sri Krishna Avataram. Only in these 2 does he actually take the form of a human and seemingly lead a normal human life. In Sri Rama Avataram, Bhagavan is said to have lived for some 11,000 years or so. Is that correct? Bye. 100,000. I was way off. 100,000 years. 11,000. He lives for so long on this earth, yet on top of that, he feels all human emotions. If we read through Ramayana, he feels all human emotions. He feels that sadness when he is banished to the forest from his parents and his kingdom. And he feels that anguish when he is separated from Sita Mata. Throughout Rama Avataram, we can see him suffering at this. But still he is Bhagavan. Still, even though he's going through such emotional turmoil and suffering, he's actually not involved in anything. That is the definition of an avataram. If we were to look at it, the true definition of an avataram in our Shastras, they would say that Bhagavan descends to this earth but does not get involved in the samsara, does not get involved in these daily activities. Instead, he remains in that Nija Anandam, that eternal bliss. However, Sri Guruji would very jovially say that if that were the case, if Bhagavan was to always remain in that Nija Anandam, then there's no need for him to come down in the first place. He can stay in Vaikuntham. Why does he come down? At the same time, there's no need for him to always be trying to affiliate with us and go through the same emotions as us and go through the same day-to-day activities as us. We're already going through that. We're already facing that. Hence, an avataram would mean that Bhagavan is simply appearing to go through our emotions, to be crying and suffering, but still remain in that Nija Anandam. And Sri Guruji would also say that a true Rama Bhakta would read through Ramayana and see how much Sri Ramachandra Prabhu appears to suffer and say to himself, my gosh, look at how well he's acting. On the other hand, if we were to look at Krishna Avataram, we can see it's quite different. If we were to give an analogy of the meaning of an avataram, we could say it involves coming down to our level. Not literally in that, he's in the next floor above us and he's just walking down the steps. But Bhagavan is coming down off his position, off his throne, to take a form amongst us and to mix amongst us and be amongst us. That Bhagavan who is described in the Vedas as being the most difficult one to attain. That Bhagavan who yogis yearn for years and years of penance. That same Bhagavan takes the form of Sri Krishna, who plays with the Gopas and Gopis, who writes so many Leelas. And Guruji would very often say that Krishna Avataram can only truly be appreciated, as he would say, by Rasika Janangal, by those who really savor and enjoy his Leelas. That's why Sukha Brahmam doesn't call out for the yogis in the opening verses of Srimad Bhagavatam. He doesn't call out for the yogis, he doesn't call out for those with vairagam in their hearts. Who does he call out for? Rasikaha bhuvi babuka Rasika Jananga. And out of all of the bhaktas throughout Srimad Bhagavatam who drink in the nectar of Sri Krishna's Leelas. We can say that one group stands above everyone else. It's very easy to say that. Who is it? It's none other than the Gopas and Gopis of Vrindavan, of Gokulam. It was those Gopas and Gopis who witnessed all of Sri Krishna's Leelas, who witnessed him defeating one demon after another, perform that Kalinga Nartanam, and ultimately lift that Govardhana Mala. And today is Gopashtami, a very auspicious day, and it's a celebration not only of the Gopas and Gopis, not only of Sri Krishna Bhagavan lifting Govardhana Mala, but everything that encompassed his life in those early years, including the cows, the calves, his stealing ways when he was young. And it also signifies the anniversary of Govindha Patabishekam. Just as there was Rama Patabishekam in Ramayana, so was there Govindha Patabishekam in Srimad Bhagavatam. So how does Govardhana Leela come about? What is the cause of it? All of it arises from the ego and pride of Lord Indra, that king of the Devas who has grown arrogant and proud and big-headed over time from his position and power as king of the Devas. And so one day, Sri Krishna and Sri Balarama are about to take the cows and calves out to graze in the fields. And they notice that something is different in Gokulam. Something is very different. The whole town is very busy. Everyone's running here and there. There are banana leaves strung over doorways. Merchants are dealing goods. And what are they dealing? Items that are needed for a homam, a yajna. And in every single house you can see a stovetop burning. And not only in every house, even outside, every stovetop has a pot with lots and lots of food, pots and pots of food. And Krishna notices this. He notices that it's very unusual for a normal day in Gokulam. He mentions this to Balarama, and they decide to go straight to Nandagopa instead of asking each and every one around there. And so when Krishna finally asks his father, he's very careful with his choice of words. He chooses his words very carefully. In fact, if we look at this conversation, we can learn how to talk to someone if we want to get information out of them. And he frames his question specifically so that Nandagopa doesn't hide anything. Nahi gopyam hi sadhunam krityam sarvatmanam iha. Pa, sadhus and mahans, sadhukal and mahangalla rahasyamla vechika Sadhus and mahans don't keep any secrets, Ava rahasyam vechindana ava sadhu illa. If they keep a secret, they're not a sadhu, they're not a mahan. So you won't hide anything from me, will you? Pa, you're a mahan, you're a sadhu. So tell me, what is all this fuss about? What's everyone preparing for? What's happening today? And Nandagopa replies, Bhajanyo Bhagavan Indro Meghatashyatma Murtayaha. Krishna, you know that Lord Indra, king of the Devas that's living up in Devalokam? Well, he's the one that's responsible for all of the rain. He's the one that brings all of the rain clouds in the rainy season. Krishna, prepare it. Only if it rains will the grass grow. La? Only if the grass grows will the cows be able to graze. No? Only if the cows graze will they be healthy. La? Only if the cows are healthy will they then produce milk. And only if they produce milk will we then survive and will we be happy. Seri pa, adlan seri, adlan correct da. Everything you're saying is true. But what connection is there between everything that you're saying and this yajna that you're going to do, this homam that you're going to do? What's the connection? Para Krishna, only if that Lord Indra is happy will he then shower us with rain. Only if he's happy. And at this point, the cogs in Nandagopa's head start to click. They start to turn and he thinks, something's wrong. Krishna's up to something. He realizes that Krishna may try to change this age-old tradition that has been established for years and years. And so he adds on very carefully after this, Kamat, Lopat, Bhayat, Dveshat, Savenapnoti Shopanam. Take for example, a family that conducts a Ganesha puja every year. Vidama varsham varshama or Ganapati puja panidurka, and the tata panidurka varsham varshama. And one day the grandson comes along, and he asks the priest, why are we doing this? Can you please tell me how much does this puja cost every year? And the priest replies, $1,000. Chicho, paravalanga. We don't need any of that. Lopate. If someone is stingy, kanjima and dana. If someone is stingy and they stop an age-old tradition that has been set in the Shastras and they have been following for generations, then it is said that good fortune will not come to that family. Take for example another family. The grandson says, if I go to America, then I'll be able to make twice as much money every year and I'll be able to lead a much more comfortable life. Kamate. If they abandon a tradition in search of pleasures and comfort, then that too will lead to misfortune for that family. And if a family has been following a tradition that has been passed on year after year, generation after generation, like a sampradaya, like a parampara, if they've been following that and suddenly a priest comes forward and they scare them and they say, don't do this, then that too will mean that they will no longer have good fortune in their family. Bhayat. And so Nandagopa adds this afterwards, and by saying all of this, Nandagopa is trying to persuade Krishna. He's trying to persuade him that this is an age-old tradition that we've been following for years and years and that we cannot change. But Krishna is not convinced. He doesn't buy it. But, why should we have to bribe him when he should be doing his normal duty? You know, we're doing our normal duties, aren't we? We're looking after the cows, we're looking after the calves, we're dealing with the merchants, we're looking after each other. It's Indra's duty to send the rain. Why should we have to bribe him to do this? There's no need for this yajna. There's no need for it. Nandagopa is very confused now. Yeah, Krishna's got a very valid point. He's got a very valid point. And not only that, as the conversation proceeded, everyone around them had stopped and started listening. And now everyone was shouting and agreeing with Krishna. Krishna Saladada Seri, Krishna Saladada Seri. What Krishna is saying is correct. Nandagopa, he doesn't know what to do. Seri, pe ennadam panna sollara? What do you want me to do? Pa, kavalapadada. We have our God right in front of us, don't we? Every day we look up and we see him. That Govardhana Mala, Mount Govardhana. It's on the slopes of Govardhana that our cows and the calves graze, don't they? Seri padla, seri, okay, but look at all of this food that we've prepared. Only if we do a huge homam, only if we do a huge yajna, will we be able to offer that. What will we do with all of this food then? Pa, the patilan kavala padada. Look, I'll tell you what we can do. First, we'll apply manjal podi, manjal pusuvo, chandanam pusuvo, kungumam iduvo, and then we'll offer new vastras and garments to Govardhana. And then after that, we'll let the cows and the Brahmins go, and we'll follow them around and do a big pradakshina around Govardhana. And after that, we can do a huge nevedyam. We can offer all of this food and present it to Govardhana. Okay, fair enough. But if we're going to do this, shouldn't there be some stamp of approval in the Shastras? Where is the stamp of approval? Where is it written in the Shastras? Enge ezhudirukku? Which text is it in? And then Krishna replies, Yetan mama matam tata kriyatanyati rojate. Yetan mama matam. Pa na ipo ezhudirken. I'm writing it as we speak. There is the stamp of approval. I'm giving it the stamp of approval. And so Nandagopa eventually agrees and he decides, okay, let's go ahead with this. Let's listen to Krishna. And so everyone gathers around the base of Govardhana and they apply chandanam, they apply kungumam, they offer new vastras, they offer new garments. And then they bring all of this food. They bring all of the food that they had prepared and they offer it to Govardhana Mala. And as this was happening, Nanda Baba is standing back and watching the whole thing. He sees this huge mountain. See, Govardhana is one mountain, then you see this huge, a whole other mountain right in front of him. He sees this huge mountain of food. And he's thinking to himself, look at all of this food we've prepared. If we had done a normal homam, if we had done our normal yajna, we could at least offer everything into the fire. Swaha, swaha. Now what are we going to do? Krishna has told us to abandon all of that. What's going to happen to all of this food? Is it going to go to waste? And Krishna is standing right next to him. Kuttiyarka, pre kai pudichundu, sucking his thumb. And he can hear what's going through his father's mind. He can hear what's going through his father's mind. And Krishna decides to take the form of that Govardhana mala, of that mountain. And so he appears as another figure on top of that mountain in the distance, as a small silhouette in the distance. And as soon as he sees him, he says, Appa, Appa, Malavu Machi vandirukku pa, Malavu Machi vandirukku. Kannathula othikko pa, namaskaram pannu pa, Malavu Machi vandirukku. And so a small figure appears on top of Govardhana. And what happened next? Sukha Brahman so beautifully describes it. Bhuvan bhuri bhalim adat bruhad vabuhu. That little figure on top of the mountain opened his mouth. All of the food disappeared into his mouth. Nandagopa stood dumbfounded. First he was thinking, what are we going to do with all of this food? I thought we're going to have to throw it away. So much is going to go to waste. And now what's going through his mind? Konjamada taste kadikuma. Will we at least get some to taste? His prasadam? And now as all of this was taking place, upstairs in Devalokam, Indra was checking his calendar, his schedule. And he was checking what offerings would be coming next. And he had especially marked this particular day because he knew that food would be coming from Gokulam. He was looking out for that food. Why? Because Gokulam had the best cows. And the best cows produced the best milk. And so the best milk would have the best food. So he was waiting for this. Nakanitinde, he was waiting for it. And time was going on and he realizes something is wrong. The food's not coming. It's getting late. As soon as he realizes this, he sends his messengers to find out what the delay is. What's holding them up. And so Indra's messengers go down to Gokulam. They saw what was happening. They saw all of the people of Gokulam gathered around this mountain. They didn't see any big homam fire, any big yajna. And they saw this tiny Krishna standing next to them. And they realized it's not happening this year. So they go back to Devalokam. They go back to Indra with downcast faces. Mugatla Vadipe. They come in front of Indra. And Indra's like, where's all the food? Where is it? I thought you would have brought it back by now. What happened? We're not going to get it. Why? Yeah. Ennachu? Krishnam martyam upashridyaye chakrur devahelano. See, when we get annoyed with someone or when we're angry with someone, in that heat of the moment, we might call them, something, we might call them like an animal. Naye. We might call them a dog, or we might call them some kind of creature. Ana Devalokatle, enna pannuvaana, they would call them humans. Avlo kevalama irukum. Manushangallam paatana. That's exactly what they're saying here. Krishnam martyam upashridya ye chakrur devahelanam. Indra, there's this one tiny little human, Bodhipaya. He's up to no good down there. He's convinced all of the people of Gokulam to ridicule us up here. Devahelanam. Yaar? And the Krishnava? Mail pili potupane? The one with the peacock? Avanuku in the Volagatta Pura? Nalla pere illiye. He doesn't have a good name throughout this whole world. No, even I've noticed when I fly over in my chariot, I look down, I see his mother's house, and there's a line of people, a queue formed of people complaining to Yashoda Mata that he's stolen milk, he's stolen butter, he's stolen curd, he's stolen clothes. He's nothing but a thief. He's up to no good, and even with such a bad name, they're listening to him. And the Krishnava. Adlan tappu. He's brought shame to me. He's brought shame to me in front of all of my subjects. Just watch what I'm going to do to him. So what does Indra do? He commands all of his subjects to send every single rain cloud that they have in the factory. To send every single rain cloud make sure that it never stops raining in Gokulam. Make sure that it floods Gokulam and that the city is destroyed. ஒரு மணி நேரத்துக்குள்ள அந்த குட்டி கிருஷ்ணன் என் காலை வந்து விழணும். That tiny Krishna should come and fall at my feet within an hour. Make sure it never stops raining. And so the order was set. It starts raining cats and dogs at Gokulam. And not just normal rain. Raindrops the size of fists. And that too hail on top of that. And with every minute, the temperature was dropping. The calves were screaming out to their mothers in fear. All of the household belongings in all of the homes, the furnitures, all being swept out by the flood. All of the people shivering, running out into the streets. It was pure chaos. They had no idea what to do. And what was going through their minds at that time? What was going through their minds? Jata vepana govindam sharanam yayo. They're all searching for that 7-year-old Krishna, that tiny little Krishna. They're all looking for him. Why? Govindam sharanam yayo. To fall at his feet, to do namaskaram. Each and every person throughout Gokulam, from the youngest of babies being carried by their mothers through to the oldest of grandmothers and grandfathers, all searching for that Krishna, searching for his feet to perform Sharanagati. They come to Krishna and fall at his feet, and when Krishna looks around, what does he notice? One particular person catches his eye. A young mother, clutching her baby, wrapped up in a cloth to protect it from the cold, who herself is shivering, drenched from head to toe from that rain which looks like it's never going to stop raining. That mother and so many others like her who've been searching for Krishna, searching for his feet, his lotus feet. Govindam sharanam yayo. Krishna Krishna Mahabhaga Tvannatam Gokulam Prabhu Tratumar hasi devataha kupitat bhakta vatsala. How beautiful are they calling out for him? Kupitat bhakta vatsala. See, we may call him beautiful fancy names like that Supreme Brahman, Nirgunam, Jyoti Swarupam, Paramapurushan, but at the end of the day, when we say Bhagavan, when we say Krishna, when we say Govinda, we get that reassurance within our heart. We get that peace. We get that feeling that Bhagavan is with us. He's standing next to us and that he will protect us. And gives us that peace. And now Krishna looks at all of the people standing in front of him. And he looks very carefully. Are they talking amongst themselves? Yeah. Are they whispering amongst themselves? Are they angry with him? Are they cursing him for putting them in this predicament? Are they cursing themselves for trusting him with their lives? No, they're not saying anything. Not even a single word. Enna sollada? No, they weren't saying Krishna nambi veena ponu. Adu sollala. Enna sollarana? Krishna nada nambi porame. Adliyadu sandoshama irpom. They're not saying it's because of Krishna that we are going to die. What are they saying? At least we trusted Krishna before we died. At least we're happy with that. That's how strong their bhakti was. What were they saying? He is the one that has protected us, and he is the one that will take us at the end. He is the one that has protected us, and he is the one that will take us in the end. That is how strong their faith was. Normally, when we read through the Shastras or listen to a pravachan, we would hear about these great bhaktas who would savor the nectar of reading and listening about Krishna's karuna, his sheer amount of grace, and they would experience such bhavas. They would go into trances. They would cry tears of joy. Many silirko. The hairs on their body would stand up. They would get shivers through their body. There are plenty of stories showing those bhavas of the great bhaktas in the past. But what does the next line of Bhagavatam say here? Bhagavan himself is crying. Bhagavan himself is crying. Bhagavan is crying those tears of joy. Bhagavan ke meni silakaddu. The hairs on his body are standing on end. He is getting shivers through his spine. He asks himself, what other god would have such great bhaktas like these gopas and gopis? Vera endha devathukku ipdi kadaikum? Tasmat matcharanam goshtam annatam matparigraham. இப்படி ஒரு பக்தாவா எனக்கு? இப்படி ஒரு பக்தாவா? நான் என்ன பாக்கியம் பண்ணினேன்? What blessings did I get? வேற எந்த தெய்வத்துக்கு இப்படி கிடைக்குமா? Which other god would get bhaktas like this? A family might visit a temple when their firstborn child is born, and as they're lining up to see the murti in the temple, some other people in the line might be whispering amongst themselves, or they might overhear, "Hey, did you hear that the temple next door is even more powerful for newborn babies?" As soon as they hear that, before even seeing the murti, they'll run over to the next temple. Just as we see so many doctors for second, third and fourth opinions, don't we see so many gods? அப்படிதான் இருக்கும்ல. ஆனா இந்த these gopas and gopis are not like that. That is not how they were. Shri Guruji so beautifully sings in his kirtan. Ver oru deivate naan ariyadadal, ver oru deivate naan ariyadadal, ver oru deivamum enai ariyadu, ver oru deivamum enai ariyadu, உன்னருள் அன்றி வேர் ஒன்றும் அறியேனே கண்ணா, உன்னருள் அன்றி வேர் ஒன்றும் அறியேனே. வேறு ஒரு தெய்வத்தை நான் அறியாததால். There's not a single other god. It is only you, Krishna. And here, seeing all of his bhaktas, Krishna begins to tell himself. He goes into this state of bliss, into that anandam. These are my people. This is my Gokulam. These are my bhaktas, my cows, my calves. Na. Ella innordhu. He says it again and again in that anandam. He cries those tears of joy. And we are given that perfect example of the ultimate bhakta. That beautiful example. And with that newfound strength, Bhagavan decides to show his greatness. All of this time throughout his youth, he'd been, destroying Rakshasas, he'd been vanquishing demons one after another, but every single time his Maya would come over and mask the eyes of these people of Gokulam. They would not know that it is none other than Bhagavan that is amongst them. But now, Bhagavan says, that is enough, I am going to show my greatness. And how does he do that? He lifts that Govardhana mala with his bare hands. And shouldn't Sukha Brahmam at least say that he struggled a bit, lifting that huge mountain with his bare hands? Konjamaadu kashtapatirkalame. Appadi sollirkalamla. Eppadi sollarar? Tathara leelaya Krishna chatrakamiva balakaha. Tathara leelaya, just like that, effortlessly. And that too he specifically describes just as a young child would pluck a mushroom from the ground. Just as a young child would pluck a mushroom from the ground, that's how easily he just lifted it with his hands. And Krishna calls everyone to come underneath the mountain. Sikrama vango. No need to get drenched anymore. He calls them into shelter from the rain. And now look here, outside is all of this rain, outside is all of this cold, which with each passing minute, the temperature is dropping and dropping. And what's the other option? This tiny little Krishna holding up this mountain. If we go underneath that mountain, what if he drops it on our heads? Nama chutney dane. But they didn't see it as a dilemma. They didn't see it as a predicament. The decision was very clear to them. They all willingly ran inside. They willingly ran under. And that too, they weren't crying. They didn't go half-heartedly. They went in singing joyously. Enna paadinda? Govindhanu kaatpattu kudumbam amma engal kudumbam. 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 இல்லறத்தில் இருந்திடுவோம், நலரங்கள் செய்திடுவோம், எல்லாம் அவன் இஷ்டம் என்று எண்ணி அல்லல் எல்லாம் அவன் இஷ்டம் என்று எண்ணி அல்லல் படமாட்டோம். கோவிந்தனுக்கு ஆட்பட்டு குடும்பம் அம்மா எங்கள் குடும்பம். கோவிந்தனுக்கு ஆட்பட்டு குடும்பம் அம்மா எங்கள் குடும்பம். கவலை படமாட்டோம், காலனுக்கு அஞ்ச மாட்டோம். புண்ணியம் பாவம் காலம் என்று பரிதவிக்கவும் மாட்டோம். கோவிந்தனுக்கு ஆட்பட்டு குடும்பம் அம்மா எங்கள் குடும்பம். கோவிந்தனுக்கு ஆட்பட்டு குடும்பம் அம்மா எங்கள் குடும்பம். சோம்பி திரியவும் மாட்டோம், வம்பு பேசவும் மாட்டோம். நம்பி அவன் சரணத்தை நாமம் சொல்லி வாழ்ந்திடுவோம். கோவிந்தனுக்கு ஆட்பட்டு குடும்பம் அம்மா எங்கள் குடும்பம். கோவிந்தனுக்கு ஆட்பட்டு குடும்பம் அம்மா எங்கள் குடும்பம். When talking about Govardhana Leela, Sri Guruji would often describe a very specific painting that he saw when he visited Vrindavan once. In that painting would be Krishna standing with his legs crossed over in that traditional stance, holding up Govardhana Mala with just a single pinky. And all around him would be the people of Gokulam. And what would they be doing? In one area, there would be a party drying applams, for the next day. In another area, there would be a mother hanging up the clothes for after they'd been washed. In another area, there'd be a mother cooking food. Krishna wasn't just holding up the mountain for a couple of minutes, for a couple of hours, for 7 straight days. He was holding up Govardhana Mala without any effort. And what were his parents thinking of throughout all of this time? Nandagopa and Yashoda Mata. Take for example a father that has just seen his son receive a promotion at work, who's just become a CFO. And he goes around to each one of his friends. Have you seen my son? He's just become the CFO of his company. My son, just become the CFO. Hey Ramasamy, பையன் பாத்தியா? என்னோட பையன் CFO, பெரிய CFO ஆயிட்டான். It's exactly what Nandagopa was doing here. Krishnan பாத்தியா? அது என்னோட பையன். யார் மலை தூக்குறா? என்னோட பையன். What was Yashoda Mata saying all of this time? Naya Raja, you're making my son lift that mountain, that huge mountain, and you're walking around bragging to each and every person? If you're such a big king, why don't you get some big burly men to lift up the mountain instead and leave my son alone? That's how the mother and father were. What about the children? Gopas and gopis? They've seen Krishna through all of his leelas. They've seen him defeat one demon after another without any effort. They've seen him dance on top of Kalinga without any effort. And so for him to lift this mountain just seemed like another standard day in Krishna's life. Just another usual day. So what do? They come up to Krishna with those big sticks that they use to herd the cows. And they tell him, Krishna, come on, we're getting bored. Can you please put that mountain down, okay? We can prop it up on these sticks. Come play some marbles with us. Ellam porom. Nammaloda goli vandu vilayadalam va. For 7 days, he held that mountain above them. For 7 straight days, the people of Gokulam lived their lives as if nothing was happening, as if it was just normal. But aside from going about their daily lives, they were constantly chanting Nama, constantly singing Bhagavan Nama. Jai Jai Govinda Jaya Hari Govinda, 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 Govinda 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 Govinda, 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 Govinda. And all this time, Indra had been watching upstairs. He'd seen this tiny child hold up this mountain for 7 days. And he was getting worried because the clouds were running out of stock. They were going on empty tanks now. It was 7 straight days. That's all they had. And so the rain eventually stopped. And once Bhagavan realizes that the clouds are all empty, he tells everyone to go outside, to step outside. And Sukha Brahman very specifically, very clearly describes how Sri Krishna put Govardhana Mala back down. Bhagavan apitam sailam swastane purvavat prabhu. He put it down in its exact same position. Not a centimeter here, not a centimeter there. In that exact same position. And how did he put it down? Leelaya. Effortlessly. Just as he lifted it effortlessly, so did he put it down. Without any effort. And why does Sukha Brahman go into such specific detail to describe all of these aspects of Govardhana Leela? Why does he do that? He does it because Bhagavan chose to show his greatness to the Gopas and Gopis at that time. He chose to cast aside his Maya, which he had been holding for 7 years up till that point. He chose to show his greatness. And so Sukha Brahman felt that that same greatness should shine through the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam. That same greatness, we should witness that, and it should inspire some bhakti within our hearts, even a fraction of bhakti that the Gopas had. So why did this Leela take place in the first place? We said at the beginning it was because of Indra's pride, it was because of his arrogance, it was growing day by day, and Krishna thought that it was finally time to put it to an end. And so Indra comes down to earth. He realizes that he has to meet with this Krishna, there's something special about him, so he comes down on his chariot after Krishna has put down Govardhana Mala. But whilst all of this Leela was done in front of everyone in Gokulam, it was done in front of all of the people of Gokulam. The final part of this Leela took place just between Indra and Sri Krishna, just between those two. No one else, not in front of anyone else. Bhagavan could have made Indra prostrate before him in front of everyone else just to make a point. But such is his kripa, such is his grace. He already felt that Indra was defeated enough. There was no need to kick someone when they're down. Such was his grace. And after Indra concedes and accepts his mistake, Kamadhenu, the holy cow, she comes and showers her milk on Sri Krishna. The Devas shower their flowers over him, and music plays from the heavens. And just as there was Rama Patabishekam, so was there Govinda Patabishekam. And after that point, Krishna received the name Govinda. It is only after that point that he received the name Govinda. And we have seen through this Leela how strong the fire of bhakti is within the hearts of the gopis. Within all of the people of Gokulam. For them to have trusted Krishna like that, without any second doubts, without any second thoughts. We've seen what it truly means to surrender to Bhagavan, what Sharanagati means here. To accept whatever fate lies before us as nothing but Bhagavan's kripa, nothing but his grace. So let us pray on this very auspicious day of Gopashtami. Let us pray that we may have even a fraction of that same bhakti that was in the hearts of the Gopas and Gopis. And let us pray for that bhakti to grow day by day through nothing but chanting Bhagavan Nama.